Hello, this is Heather Hoffman, and I'm here today to share a card using some of the new release from Simon Says Stamp called Make Merry. I'm making a fall themed card here using the beautiful new Falling Leaves layering stencil. It's a 5-piece stencil set and so super duper fun to use. I'm using my little mini Make Art Station. It's a little magnetic board. I'll have a link on the bottom of the blog post as well as the YouTube video if you're looking for that. And I'm going to start by ink blending some antique linen. So the first stencil has all of the parts of all of the different leaves on there. So I'm doing it in antique linen because it's a nice soft color and it's going to kind of serve as a placeholder for me. So I can layer all the other colors over the top and everything will be in its place but will be its own color. So you'll see when I pull this off, it's really soft. You can't see it that much, but it just provides, again, a placeholder, but it also is just a nice soft layer that's going to kind of deepen the color on there as well. All right, I'm going to take the second layer of that stencil, and you can see I'm just matching it up over the part of the leaves that match up with this portion of the stencil. And once I have it laid over and centered right where I want it to be, I can pop those magnets back in place to hold the stencil where I want. And I'm going to move on to Crackling Campfire. I'm using Distress inks for all of my ink blending. And then these are life-changing blender brushes. It's one of my favorite. And these little small size make it really handy for just getting into all these little places. Because I have that antique linen underneath as well, I don't have to worry about getting color all the way necessarily on every bit of these. I can kind of blend out and you're still going to be able to see the shape of the leaf, and it's going to add a little bit of depth to that blending as well. All right, got this layer on, so I'm going to pull that off. I'm cleaning each of these in between. I'm just skipping through it so you don't have to watch me clean each layer of the stencil. All right, on to this next one, holding it in place again as before with the magnets. And this color I'm going to use Fossilized Amber. Those the other ones I had in the large size, these I only have in the mini ink cubes, but these little blender brushes work just great to get in even that small size like that. The magnets, you notice they kind of get in the way on a couple little places on that stencil, but it's very easy just to lift and move them out of the way and get the parts that I want. All right, can you kind of see how this is starting to build up? And at any point, you could stop the layers and leave everything else just a little bit softer on the background. But it was so fun to just keep going and keep building up layers and adding additional little bits to it. All right, so for this layer, you might notice those are a little more fine and detailed, so it took a little second longer to line it up. But I'm going to go ahead and blend Forest Moss over this. I can't wait to try this with just so many different color combos. But it just felt right to do a very fall color combo to start with. But I think it'd be fun to do in some non-traditional colors as well. You could kind of just get a leafy background, even though it's very fall when I did it in these colors. And that was the name of it. I wanted to go with those colors. I also think it'd be fun to mix it up a little bit. So that's next on my list to do with this. All right, for this final color here, I'm using Gathered Twigs to add the last little bit of color just onto the final layer of that stencil there. There's not very many parts to this one, a couple leaves and a couple little acorns, so it's super fast and easy just to blend that over. And then you pull this off and you can see the magic of the finished entire background, all created just with stencils, and it almost looks like it was a stamped background, but super duper fun. All right, there's a closer look at that. All right, for a sentiment on here, I'm pulling out one of the new, I almost feel bad cutting it out, but it's one of the new Suzy's watercolor pre-printed pages. This one's called Sweater Weather is the collection. And I just fussy cut out that oval on the front. And then I'm using those same colors of Distress ink smooshed onto a clear block with a brush and a little bit of water just to go ahead and paint these images in. This is going to make sure that it perfectly coordinates with my stenciled background. And because these are on watercolor paper, they can handle the water and the Distress ink there to add the color. Did the pumpkins with Fossilized Amber and a little bit of Crackling Campfire, and then Forest Moss on the top of the stems for the pumpkins. All right, I set that aside and let that dry, and then I wanted to soften the edges a little bit. It just felt a little bit too white. So I pulled out that antique linen Distress ink again, and I'm just doing a soft blend around the outer edges, leaving the white still in the center, but that's going to soften those edges a little bit. Then I pulled out a black Copic marker. And in hindsight, I probably would have let that dry more, but I actually like the look. The Copic bled a little bit into that distress marker, so it almost makes it look a little like when you kind of char the edges of something. So it kind of added a really fun little bit of texture on there as well. All right, I die cut that panel with the largest stitched rectangles die. And then I'm going to adhere that oval on there with a little bit of foam adhesive just to pop it up from the background and add a little dimension. And I'm a self-proclaimed overuser of foam adhesive, so you'll just have to bear with me that I like to make sure everything's super solid and I won't have to worry about things moving out of the way. I was going to adhere this right onto a craft card base, but with that little black border on that oval in the middle, it felt like it needed something to just pop it off that background a little. So I added a thin mat of black cardstock before adhering that on the back of my card base using a little bit of foam adhesive to adhere it in place. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. Nope, the foam adhesive was only behind the oval. I just adhered that straight onto the back of the card. All right, and then one final finishing touch, just because I couldn't resist. I pulled out some glossy accents just to add a little more of a dimensional look to those pumpkins. They looked kind of neat on there already, but by putting glossy accents, I don't have to change anything, but it's going to add, almost make them look like an enameled embellishment that I've tucked on there instead of just watercolored right on the cardstock. So I finished filling that in nice and thick and heavy, and then I'm going to set that aside and let it dry. And this card is done. Thanks so much for coming by today. Have a wonderful day.